What is going on, guys? Today we're going to be reacting to modern animation. So this is our animation channel where you get to see creepy stories and when it's animated. But the first story we're going to be checking out is Six Omega Horror Stories Animated.
My parents allowed me to stay home and have Alex over. My mom left a note on the fridge with all emergency numbers, and my dad told me to call him if anything happens. I assured them that everything's going to be fine. Me and Alex were just going to play video games and have some pizza later. I called Alex, and he came to my house 15 minutes later. We played UFC on my PS4 for 2 hours, and then had some pizza. After our meal, we just sat in the living room talking about random stuff. Eventually, we started talking about girls. Alex mentioned a
Wait, so these teenage boys just start talking about girls for no fucking reason. Well, that's a stretch.
website where you could talk to random people called Omegle. He also said that he talked to some girls on there, so we decided to go on Omegle and try our luck. For the first 30 minutes, we didn't get matched with any girls. We were starting to get bored. And just when I was moving my mouse to close out of the webpage, 2 girls showed up on our screen. They were about our age, maybe a little older. We started talking to them, but they were just typing. We could see that they were trying to talk, but we couldn't hear them. We told them to turn on their microphone, but the girl said that they don't have a microphone. We continued talking to them. We said that we were home alone, and so were they. They said that they lived in the same city as us, and the same area as Alex and I, but we've never seen these girls before. I thought this was odd because
Wait, what's wrong with that guy's? What's wrong? What's wrong with the guy's teeth? It's just like some broken ass shit, guy. What the hell?
our city's pretty small. After 15 more minutes, they said that we were cute and that we should hang out sometime. We were stunned. Girls usually don't want to hang out with us, so Alex gave them a Snapchat username. As soon as he typed his username, the girls disconnected. We were really bummed out. We didn't even get their names. So we just turned off my laptop and went back to PS4 to play some video games. Some time passed. We were still playing video games when Alex took out his phone. He had just received a snap from someone called AnnaXOXO99. He opened it, and it was a picture of the 2 girls we met on Omegle earlier. They were walking on a street, and the caption said, "Can we come over and hang out?" Alex immediately looked at me. He didn't ask me anything. I already knew what he wanted, and I said no. He wasn't happy about this, but he understood at the same time. Alex texted them saying that he can't come over, and that they should hang out some other time. A couple of minutes later, the girls responded, "Can we meet at the park then?" So Alex asked me if I wanted to go to the park with them. It was only 10 minutes of walking from my house, but I still said no. At this point, Alex was a little frustrated, and he said he was going with or without me. Maybe he was right. Maybe I should go. Am I really going to pass up on an opportunity like this? I looked at my watch, and it was 10:30 p.m. So it wasn't that late, and my dad's friend lived right next to the park, so I said I'd go with him. But if anything seemed strange, we would immediately go back to my place. Alex agreed.
You shouldn't go there in the first place if you don't know these people, man. With your little eye. But still, what happened to your teeth?
He sent the girls a snap saying that we were on our way to the park. They replied that they were waiting for us at the children's playground. We got out of my house and started walking to the park. The whole walk there, I was thinking, what if something goes wrong? We don't even know those girls, and what if someone else was at the park with them? I didn't want to say anything, because Alex probably would just say I'm paranoid, so I kept my thoughts to myself. After 10 minutes of walking, we got to the park. The children's playground was a little deep into the park, so I asked Alex to ask them to come to the main entrance of the park because we were already there. Alex just said, "Dude, come on," and texted them that we were at the park. After a minute or so that we arrived at the playground, there was no one there. I asked Alex if they responded to our last snap, and he said no, they just opened it. We waited there for a couple of minutes, but there was no sign of the girls. We were all alone in that park. I told Alex that they were probably just messing with us and that we should just go home, but Alex wanted to stay a couple of minutes more. A minute passed, and that's when we heard someone walking behind us. We turned around, and there was a guy dressed in black. standing behind a tree looking at us. He had a creepy
Ugh,
smile on his face. I
Jesus.
said to Alex that we should go home and that this wasn't a good idea. Alex agreed, and we started walking back home. The whole time, I was looking over my shoulder, trying to see if the man was following us. And he was.
Nice, says they were
I told
working
Alex,
fast.
and we instantly started running. Just when we got to the park's entrance, the guy grabbed my hand and started screaming in some insane way. I was screaming and
Dick.
kicking, trying to get him to let go of my hand.
This
I
guy
was calling Alex to help me, but he ran away.
Please stop loading.
The guy started pulling me back into the park. I was screaming as loud as I could, and that's when I saw blue and red lights. The guy must have seen them too, because he immediately let go of my hand and ran deeper into the park. I started running back to the direction of my house when a police officer stopped me. I explained everything to him, and he called my parents. The police officer took me to the police station to wait for my parents to pick me up. My parents came after about an hour, and the police officer told them what happened, and so did I. My dad asked if they caught the guy, and they said they were still looking for him. When we got home, my parents were glad nothing serious happened, but they still were mad at me because I left the house to meet some girls I was talking to online. They told me to go to sleep and that everything will be alright. The next day, Alex came to my house. He was with his dad, and he apologized for running away last night. He also said that when he got home, he opened his Snapchat, and there was no sign of Anna XOXO99. It was like she never existed. For some context, I'm a teenage male, and this happened when I was around 17 years old.
Wait, so you're telling me you met up with them, or they just like asked them to meet up with you and just sent a picture of them being at the park, I think, and then they just left and unfriended them or something? What's happening right now? I am so confused. So the next story we're going to be checking out is 4 creepy classmate horror stories animated. So we're only going to watch one of the stories and then going to continue on.
Since my very youngest days, I was treated as a golden child. My mother heaped buttloads of affection onto me and bragged to her friends how great of a son I was. I fear my younger brother missed out because she had already spent all of the love she had on me, so to speak. I joke about this, but I am somewhat serious at the same time. His upbringing lacked much of the praise and attention I was given. When I began playing in organized sports, the rest of the world joined in. Soccer came first. It all came so naturally, and before long, I was the top-scoring member of the team. Once I discovered football, everything else went by the wayside. Posters of Brady and Bledsoe covered my walls. My large, strong hands allowed me to grip and throw the ball with the power and precision not many twice my age had. All 3 years of middle school, I remained the starting quarterback. I did so well that by high school, I was playing on par with most seniors. My prowess in sports, of course, made me very popular in school. One of my teachers called me the big man on campus. I was never lacking the attention and approval of the staff and most of my fellow students. I didn't get a free ride, though. Without good grades, I wasn't qualified to play. Luckily for me, I had always been good at most subjects, except for perhaps math, in which I scored lower Bs. I had decided by my second year which college I would attend. I knew if I continued on my current path, I'd be quarterbacking for a professional team right out of college. To encompass all I had achieved, I quote a line I had once read that described a man as having the world in the palm of his hand. That's probably the best way I could describe the trajectory I had put upon myself. I was destined for success, and nothing was going to get in my way. I tell you all this in order to show just how far I was soon to fall, and exactly how much I was about to lose. I was a junior. I had already been named the starter on the varsity team. When not studying, I split my time between the weight room and practice. It was just before the third game of the season when Rosalind arrived. I had my mind off somewhere else when she entered our class. I still remember it like it was yesterday. A few of my classmates were grumbling about something, and it caught my attention. I happened to look up just as she was passing near me, and her beauty was breathtaking. I can honestly say with confidence you've never seen her equal in Hollywood. The rich silkiness of her auburn hair, to the sensual...
Working with videos can be frustrating. Luckily, UniConverter makes things simpler. With over 1,000 conversion formats, it can just about convert.
Sensual fullness of her lips and her porcelain skin. Not an inch of her image had a flaw. I gave her my heart in that moment, and I knew nothing would equal her in my life. She took her seat at the back of the class. None of the shyness that usually existed in the newly arrived students showed in her actions. The room was hers completely now, and she knew it. My focus was on her for the remainder of the period. She had to have known. My gaze would have burned right through her had my eyes been lasers. This day marked the beginning of a long downhill slide, and I would give anything to experience every second of that time again. Concentrating on
Not
anything
having all
else
the
was
pencil,
impossible.
dude.
Class after
I'm
class,
going to
only
go to
Rosalind
work now.
existed. Practice was much the same. I wasn't on a football field. I was still in that class, soaking in every inch, every curve of her body. From then on, my only thoughts were about her. I used my charm to get her address from an office worker. That Friday evening, as I led the team to another victory, my only desire was for the game to end. Afterwards, I sat outside her house dreaming about her and I, walking hand in hand through the halls as everyone watched jealously. I resolved in that moment that I would own her body and soul until the end of my life. My first action upon arriving at school that following Monday...
Wait, so you're hiding at her house? Like just sitting there? Pretty sure you're the one getting in trouble, bro.
was to locate Rosalind and bare my heart to her. I did just that, but her reaction wasn't what I'd envisioned. I spoke from my heart. Every word was true, but rather than collapse into my arms as I'd seen on TV so many times, she replied with 4 short words. I don't think so. I will admit to being disappointed, but her response left me with a ray of hope. She hadn't been cruel or mocking after all. Perhaps she had been playing hard to get. I knew I had to pursue her as a hunter pursues his prey. Maybe I would even be required to make a large sacrifice to prove my love.
Doesn't look like she
After
wants
all,
to do much, bro.
that's the way it works in the great Hollywood films and novels. She would
Give
realize she
up.
belonged with me. I just needed to help her realize that. I searched my soul, day and night, for a way to make this happen. Suddenly it hit from out of the blue. If I gave up football, she would have to see how dedicated I was to her. That day I informed the coach of my decision. It went about as well as you would think. He was angry and yelled for almost an hour, but at the end of our meeting, he wished me well. I was elated. I had to tell Rosalind that very second. She didn't answer my text right away, but when she did, her only answer was, "Why?" The queasiness churned up in my stomach. Even after all I'd done to let her know I loved her, putting it into words still made me very nervous. "I did it for you," I said. My hands shook as they moved to push send. It was now or never. She would be left with no doubt as to how I felt about her. After sending it, the time seemed to drag on forever. The hours passed with no word from her, and I couldn't take it any longer. I sped over to her house and waited outside her window. I watched as she changed for bed. Every curve, every line of her body remained.
What the hell? Come on, bro. You
remains
shouldn't
with
be
me to this
doing
day.
that. What the fuck?
I sent a new text to let her know that I was waiting. She appeared at her window within seconds. Seeing her in the nightgown made my heart race, and there was only one reason she would let me see her this way. My mouth was dry with anticipation. I broke into a sweat. I expected to be met with soft words, but instead she began yelling, almost screaming. Her words didn't make sense. I was confused by her behavior. It only got worse when her father came outside.
Bruh, you're
I
watching a
tried to
fucking
explain my love for his
Yes,
beautiful daughter, but he was deaf to my words. Rosalind began to curse me from her window. Terrible things I don't dare repeat here. I never dreamed this could have happened. With every word, her curses knocked me lower and lower. It was a pain I'd not wish on anyone. I was so distraught I didn't hear the word police until it was almost too late. I fled just as I noticed flashing lights up the street. I laid down in my car as they passed and sped away as they pulled up to Rosalind's house. My sobs grew and grew until I was consumed by my grief. I laid curled up upon my bed, wailing uncontrollably. However, as my tears began to subside, another fire kindled inside. My anger
That
rolled by
rhymes,
the
bro.
second, until it consumed any sadness I once had. And by dawn, I transformed into some sort of beast. A monster I never knew existed in me had taken control of my body. I began to rage.
Bruh, your
I
eyes
thought,
are dirty.
no one says those things to someone who loves them. They know the power they have over them. The idea of punishment fleeted in and out of my brain, briefly at first, then more and more until it set root and fostered a plan for retribution. I see now just how far I had gone. My love, if that's what you can call it, had transformed from obsession into hate. The quickness in which this occurred still terrifies me. In that day and in that time, I could only think of one thing: revenge. She had to feel my pain. There was no other
Why do
way
you
she could
want to
learn
take
what she had
revenge,
done.
Bruh.
I entered the school that morning with a
Damn,
single,
you ain't been
focused
looking for
purpose. My anger had clouded my mind from considering the consequences of what I was about to do. I could see the terror in her eyes as I drew closer, and I could remember feeling satisfied by this. I said nothing. I just grabbed her by the throat, both hands gripping as tightly as possible, and I knew it wouldn't take long. My grip was strong and my hands were large. I was oblivious to the grabbing and pulling of others around me. Her face took on a dark red, then almost purple hue, and I knew it wouldn't be long now. I stared into her beautiful green eyes that I had dreamt of for countless hours, and was awed by them, even as they filled with the streaking of blood. My adoration angered me even more. The next thing I remember was lying on the school floor being held down. The din of their yells seemed muffled. I was miles away, lost in the confusing pattern of the ceiling tiles above me. I'm not sure how long it was before I was told Rosalind had survived. It appeared I had been stopped before I was able to achieve my goal. This news didn't anger me, nor was I relieved. I had become numb. It's taken me many months to reclaim the identity I once was. I was terrified to feel anything. I'd become nothing more than a frightened child. I've been fortunate enough to be sent to an institution that focuses on therapeutic rehabilitation.
Who cares?
I'm by no means fully healed, for the lack of a better word. There still are moments where I find myself giving over to my dark side. I don't necessarily blame the entertainment industry for the way they portray relationships or the pursuit of love in a wider context. I'm responsible for the way I handle the situation. Something inside of me is broken. However, in the same breath, I do question what impression they intend on presenting. A young, naive, and romantic man such as myself is inundated with talk of the so-called game and the premise of sacrificing for love, among other trite concepts. Without any real guidance from a more experienced adult or father figure, a young male often uses images from the popular entertainment around him. It is a discussion that should be had, considering more boys are growing up without a positive male role model in their lives. Please pardon me for going off onto my own path. I still require a lot of work. The purpose of writing this was to recount the events that led me to my current position. My counselor and I agreed that it would be a good idea to put my story and my feelings at the time on paper. It could serve as a motivating factor for myself and others to see how far I've come in my therapy. Now that I have, it is certainly encouraging to see the progress I've made. At the same time, it's shed light upon the darker side of my personality, and that has been a horrifying vision. Despite this, I'm confident I'm on the path to regaining my true self, and perhaps one day you'll recognize the brother you grew up with. I've just about written down everything I can recall from that time, and lights out is quickly approaching. I'll make a copy of this for my counselor, minus a little epilogue to you. Of course, I'll be sending you this version for yourself. Feel free to share it with your mom or anybody else in the family that may be curious. I've written Mom a short note just about regular stuff and sent it last week, so she should receive that soon. If you have the time, I'd like you to do something like we discussed and seek out the proper place on the internet to share this. All I ask is that you leave out my name, but I probably don't have to tell you that. I'm sure you don't normally tell people your older brother is psycho. I'd like young people to be able to read an authentic account of what goes on in the mind of someone like me without all the sensationalistic fluff. I don't seek notoriety or fame for what I've done. It is an inexcusable act against one I profess to love. My hope is that it can serve as a template for the young, a diagnostic instrument to help them recognize the same patterns in their friends or themselves and stop them before they get out of control. I'd like to think if more people had access to this type of information, things like stalking and the crimes that go with it may be able to be stopped completely, or at the least greatly reduced. I'll continue to do all I can to stem the tide from here. Perhaps, if enough on the outside can see this, we can create a better world for everyone.
Anyway, that was me reacting to Martin Animations. I can't believe how these animations turned out. Like, it's not like something bad was gonna happen because nothing did. This he fucking strangled someone. Damn! It was like, one thing we can talk about was the animation itself. Had a lot of, didn't have too much effort put into it. Just made a lot of characters, but that's mostly on all of them, but really good stories and stuff. So, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Go ahead and check out Martin Animations. Go ahead and subscribe to him because he's a good channel, and that was basically what this video is about. See ya.